Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of the Awarenezzz podcast. Today with our guest Nate Langille, another remote session. Yes, happy we have you here, and yes, introduce yourself to the people.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. I'm Nate Langille. I went to Indiana Tech last year and graduated as a fifth year, and had a really great career there. So thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. So for everybody that doesn't know you, just tell us a little about yourself. How was the journey starting out in the sport of lacrosse? How was it from the beginning for you, man?
Yeah, so started up. I grew up in Chicagoland area, just north, and I started playing lacrosse when I was like 12 years old. And it wasn't that big, but I played for like a small club. It was just in the spring, one season a year, and I really, I picked it up pretty fast. I loved it. And then eventually I played in high school where it was a club program as well. It wasn't like kind of sanctioned in the school yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then the year after that, we became a co-op with two high schools. So we didn't have enough kids in our district to play like one high school team. So we ended up doing that for 2 years. And then my senior year, we became just our high school, Lakes High School. And then after that, I went on to play at Tech for 4 years. In high school. I was a captain there. I had a really great group of guys that just like loved the sport, and not all of us went on to play at that next level, but we all just loved being out there, and it was more about just having fun rather than like kind of the records and everything. And then, oh, sorry, you got something?
No. I thought you were done. I just wanted to say because I found it very curious that you started at 12 years old.
Yeah.
Is that something normal for a lacrosse player?
I would say maybe nowadays, yeah, I'd say it's pretty normal. In my coaching career right now, we've got kids that start in like kindergarten. They're like 8 years old and they start playing. But with it being such a contact sport, it's like, and there's a lot of like gear that's involved, right? Like, you got to have elbow pads, you got to have a chest pad, you got to have a helmet, you got to have your own stick, you got to have cleats, right? There's kind of high barrier to entry to sport. I would say kind of limits the amount of people that are able to like kind of start quickly,
Because for us playing football, like we're used to start playing from like 3 years old, 4 years
right.
old. It's kind of like a lifetime thing. But now you're saying that you started at 12 years old, you were still able to like develop to a higher level. Do you think, I don't know, that high barrier of entry kind of be getting lower has contributed in a good way to maybe the popularization of the sport?
Yeah, I would say so for sure. I think that definitely contributes a little bit. I'm sure when you're little, right, you can like have your own stick, right? You can kind of start playing that way, but you're not really playing games until you're about, 8, 9 years old. So
Is there age restriction for lacrosse?
I'm sorry?
Is there age restriction for lacrosse? Because
okay. Yeah, like there are no really like real programs like below like 8 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. You can't really start playing games against other teams until you're about 8.
So up until you were 12, what were you doing? I suppose you were involved in a lot of sports, no?
Yeah. I was playing other sports for sure. I was playing soccer up until I was playing football. Sorry, up until about I think I played until 7th or 8th grade. I played a lot of basketball. I ran track as well, and that was all I did really. But yeah.
Because for me, coming from Colombia, I found it very interesting. As you guys have the high school and the college system, guys are exposed to all those different sports. So you really like have an idea of what you really like, what you're good at, but also able to develop in those different skills that each sport require. Do you think that was something that helped you when making that transition into lacrosse?
100%. I think, I tell everybody, even when I'm coaching now, like you should go play other sports, in your different seasons, because the different skills, the different IQ of all the different sports really relate to lacrosse in all different ways. Like lacrosse is kind of like hockey and soccer and, and all these other kind of sports like combined, and like you got to be able to move quickly with your feet like soccer, but you also have to have the hand-eye coordination, of hockey, so it kind of, playing those other sports definitely gets you ready to play lacrosse.
Especially in your young age, you want to work on your body mechanics and like get used to your own body.
Yeah.
And also when you started with 12 years old, which is like Camilo said, like people start with 3 years with the sport. do you think you ever lost like the fun for lacrosse? Because like I know some guys back home, they started playing football, and then like when they play on a high level the whole time and have practice every day, like with 17, 18, they kind of lose the fun for it.
Yeah, I would say, I have at times, right? You lose the fun a little bit. But I think when you really start to break it down and you do the fun things like winning, right? And like you really realize that you're here with like 20 guys or 30 guys that like really love this sport, and you can't really beat that, and I imagine that they lose the fun because number one, maybe they're not winning or maybe number two, they don't have a really solid group of guys, that they like being around all the time. And I think that's what's kind of held me to the sport the whole time. It's never really been it's never been my personal performance that's kept me to the sport. It's really either been the guys or like our performance of the whole team as a whole. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great, man. And I would guess that also the fact that you had the ability to choose between different sports, like you were exposed to a lot of sports. At the end of the day, if you played lacrosse, it's because you wanted, because you chose it from all of them. So it really resonated to who you were, right?
Yeah, definitely. And up until about 8th grade, I had to choose between like I was going to be a pole vaulter actually, like in track, and
No way.
yeah, I was going to be a pole vaulter, and then like I kind of track and lacrosse are kind of in the same season, obviously. So I had to make the decision, and ultimately I loved lacrosse a lot more, and pole vault was just kind of
the
just
smaller
because.
stick.
Yeah, exactly. Chose the smaller stick. Yeah.
It was kind of different, huh?
Yeah, very different. And I loved pole vault. It was fun and everything, but lacrosse, the physicality, the brotherhood of it, everything really just drew me towards it.
I mean,
Okay.
you talked about like how would you describe the lacrosse culture, like the team culture?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest part of why I continued to play the sport, It really it's like a brotherhood. I haven't talked to some of the guys since I've graduated, but I know if I called them up right now and like told them I needed something, I know that they would come to my rescue, and it really relates to like the highs and lows that you go through with each other. Like we had some really high highs. We won a lot of big games, right? And we also lost a lot of big games. So that difference in emotion, right? Like bonds you guys together for life, and I can just absolutely say that the culture of specifically Indiana Tech is what keeps everybody there and what is really strong. So yeah, it feels pretty good.
And we actually wanted to ask you about that because here at Tech, I mean, you probably were the leader when you were here. In all the sports teams, in all the games, you always see the lacrosse team is always the loudest one. And also, when they go out to warm up, you always see. I live in Waterloo. I don't know if you know where is it. I can hear the people screaming from the from my house, from the field. So I just think for me when coming here, it was kind of like a shock a little bit. But I just thought it was very nice that they were all in sync together. They all had the same energy, and at some point that has to translate to the field, right?
100%. We talk about that a lot actually, and that energy aspect, right? It doesn't just happen on game day, right? You don't just like magically build this energy and bring it on game day, right? It goes towards everything that we do, right? We kind of, when we come to, the soccer games, or we go to the volleyball games, or we go to the hockey games, right? We're all just like pumped to be there. And that's just kind of like who we are as a brotherhood. We're not afraid to be loud. We're not afraid to kind of make a fool out of ourselves sometimes. And I think that really just like that shows how that energy is just infectious in the whole team. So yeah, I agree. That's the energy really just like we bring it everywhere. So when it gets to the field, it's just natural to us, right? It doesn't have to be fabricated or like made up, right? It's everywhere. It's all the time.
Also, I liked you mentioned before you went through like some big games, you won some big games, but you also lost some big games, and that's what you like kept you guys bonding as a team, because it's always easy to be a good team if you only win, but like then you go through the bad stuff or like the big losses, and then you have to keep staying together.
100%.
That's what makes a great team. And you've been there for 4 years, so you experienced some stuff.
Yeah, I think those losses really, we don't let them define us, right? We don't let them like dictate like, oh, we lost this big one and this meant everything to us, right? So like we're no longer great. But really, when you lose a big one, it's time to just kind of put your nose back to the grindstone and say, hey, we got to be better, right? There's more improvement to be done. And you know, we could be undefeated, you know, up until one game, and then we lose one. We can't just like discount all of those other wins, right? It's like, all right, it's a little bit of a setback, but it's 5 steps forward, 2 steps back, you know, and then another 5 steps forward. So you can't let those define you.
I love that mindset, man. And now that we talked a little bit about the energy of the lacrosse team, I want to go back a little bit to your journey. As you said, you started at 12 years old. What were some of those things that at some point started making you realize, okay, I have a good level at this. I might make something out of this, you know? Like, what were those signals that you started getting from you?
Yeah. You know, I really put in the time on my own. And that's kind of when I started to figure out, like, I wasn't just going to practice and showing up, right? I was going to play wall ball on my own, or I was going to shoot for a couple hours on my own, or, you know, I was doing footwork in the backyard, or, you know, kind of whatever it took for me to like become better at the sport. It didn't feel like work to me, right? It just felt like I was going out there and having fun. And I think that's kind of what it takes to really realize, like, maybe you're good at something it doesn't feel like work to you, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think the ability to just get better and not feel like I was, you know, really working that hard. I was just having fun.
No, I think that's a key concept. So a signal for you to know that you were probably good at it and that you make something out of it is that it didn't work. It didn't look like work for you, right? You see it as fun, right? And also, I suppose the fact of the energy that you guys bring and the team energy that you guys have make you enjoy it even more.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, on my past teams, like in high school and even like in grade school, I didn't like our teams didn't really have that same energy that Tech does, like, quite honestly.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's not like that for every single team, I wouldn't say, you know. And I think Tech was just special because it allowed that energy to flow freely rather than be, like I said, just like manufactured, or, you know, just like the team. I had to bring up the team to this energy, mm-hmm. right? We had to tell the team, like, hey, like, bring it up, you know. It was more like, we're here, we're doing it, you know. It's not it doesn't have to be made up. So yeah, the ability, the getting better at the sport and me realizing like that I was headed somewhere in the sport really just translated because I was having fun with it, and I brought that energy everywhere, you know, every time I stepped on the field. So.
And what were the steps that you took? Because I mean, I know for football, you normally go from academy, and then if anything, you go to pro, or in my case, I came to college. What were those steps in the case of lacrosse that you need to take it to a higher level? So you started in high school, and then like there was kind of like a merge between 2 high schools.
Yeah. So basically, when you start in high school, right? You play in the spring. You play in the spring for your high school team, and then in the off seasons you go play for a club, right? Like the travel club. You know, you play for your travel club, and then you kind of, you know, you can kind of do that every other season, or if you want to do it every season, right? You play for one specific club, or you can kind of jump around clubs. But, you know, I tried to stay as loyal as I could when picking a club. I played for a club that was called the Libertyville Warriors. It's funny, but that was like my first travel club team was the Libertyville Warriors. And then after that, they kind of disappeared, and we went to this team called Team One. It was Team One Illinois. And then you know, after a couple of years of that, I graduated, and you know, then I played that for, you know, a couple fall seasons, a couple spring, summer seasons, and then, you know, like a winter season, and then, you know, and then played at college. So really that recruitment, or that process of, like you're saying, like that process of those next levels of playing, they can start as early as, like, you know, 6th, 7th grade. You know, you can start playing travel at 6th grade, and then, you know, you can be playing every season up until then. So. Yeah.
Did you always have in mind you wanted to go to college?
Yeah, as soon as I kind of hit like high school, as soon as I like, kind of became a freshman, I was interested in playing in college. Yeah, that was
And
kind of my end goal.
how did the recruitment process go? Like, to give some advice maybe for younger kids, for high school kids, like what were the factors you were looking for?
Honestly, I was always a pretty level-headed kid on the field, meaning like I didn't let my emotions get the best of me. But I think that's one thing I see now in a lot of players is they really like they make this moment like too big in their head, right? And they end up like expressing all this emotion out on the field that can either be good or bad, right? Sometimes it's really good. You score a goal, you're up, you're hyped about it, like whatever. Or you make a bad play and you smack yourself in the head. You know what I mean? Like you can't beat yourself up when bad things go wrong, right? It's how you respond to those bad actions, and that's definitely the biggest advice I can give because people are watching, right? Whether it be a college coach or whether it be your coach or a teammate's mom or dad, like all of that really affects how you're seen, right? You're viewed to those other people, and if you can't keep your emotions in check, right, nobody's going to want you on their team. Other than that, that the recruitment process, right? Be a good student, right? You got to have good grades in order for colleges to start looking at you, right? If you want to go D1, you want to like play at the highest level, right? They expect you to be a very good student, right? They're not just going to take some guy who doesn't take the classroom seriously on their team. And then as far as talking to coaches, right? Send them your highlight tape, email them, get on the phone with them. Like, don't be annoying to the point where they can't like ignore you, go to the recruitment camps if you want to go there. Right. And not to mention, like, you have to put in the work, right? You can't be delusional and be like, I deserve to be at this school when you're not on that level. You know what I mean? So you really have to take your work as seriously as like the college level does. Right. So figure out what that college level is and start to work up to there if you're younger. That would be my advice.
That's a good note. They're not waiting for you. They're not looking for you. You have to reach out to them.
Yeah, you have to go find them. Exactly. They got hundreds and hundreds of emails being sent to them every day, so be the annoying one that they can't ignore.
And I think that last part, I mean, everything that you mentioned is key, but also that last part in which your actions have to be like your goal has to make sense depending on the actions that you're taking. So if you're not putting the work necessarily, you cannot expect to be a D1 lacrosse player, So
100%.
Yes, like you might have different goals, but just make sure that your actions align with them, right?
100%. 100%. I see a lot of that right now. Like kids are, they're freshmen in high school right now, right? And they think they're going D1, but really they just show up for practice and they don't put in the outside work, and they don't really know what it takes, and they're not really wanting to find out. They just think that it's going to happen overnight.
I think many people don't realize how hard it is to actually be very good at something,
100%. It takes a lot of sacrifice.
Those that know and actually do it are ultimately the ones that succeed.
Yeah, you got to have that mindset of like it's never enough, right? It's never enough work. I can put in 3-4 hours of work in a day, but am I watching film when I'm just relaxing, right? Am I stretching to recover for the next day of work, right? Am I eating healthy so my body can continue to perform at the highest level, right? It's all of the things that it's not just playing the sport, right? It's all the external things that it really takes.
So making everything very intentional towards that goal, because many people might think, oh, I'm out of training, so lacrosse is over. But like actually in every single thing that you said that you do, kind of relating to, okay, how is this gonna make me a better lacrosse player?
Yeah, making it super intentional, like you said. That's the key, right? Of like, I mean, everyone likes to go and have a good time, go to the movies, see your friends, right? Everyone likes to have some off time, but you have to make sure when you have the time that you're being very purposeful and doing everything that you can to be the best player or whatever that you want to be.
Perfect, you also mentioned like all the stuff around the pitch, like not just practice, like nutrition and also like watching film. When did you start doing all the stuff, like also besides the pitch?
Yeah, I mean, I always watched a ton of film. That was one thing. Like I love to break down my game. I love to relate my game to how other players that I viewed as like next level, right? I like to compare myself and try and play as close to I can as them. Or if I made mistakes, I made sure to break down like why I made that mistake and things like that, especially on film. And then as far as like eating healthy, I didn't take huge pride in that, to be honest with you. I kind of I calorically just like took in what I could, and hopefully that kind of fueled my body. But I always made sure that I was eating enough, right? And like
That's
I
a
was
good
having
nutrition strategy.
yeah, I was just eating enough, right? And making sure that, I had a protein shake after practice or, after a workout, right? And that's kind of all I really took it as. I wasn't huge into the like macros and micros or whatever the real nutrition stuff gets down to, but to be honest with you, it mattered about caloric intake for me. I just had to make sure I was maintaining my body weight and feeling healthy,
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's a lot about feelings, and it's not really that complicated to maintain a good nutrition. You just have to make sure you get a good amount of protein and then the right amount of carbs to fuel you for either practice or for the game. So, and also the best way to measure it is how you're feeling. If you're feeling energized for the games, if you're feeling energized throughout the day, then probably you're doing a good job,
Yeah, I would say so. I'm not after practice. I'm not like craving a Big Mac from McDonald's. I'm craving a chicken and some rice or something. It was never. I never really went to the fast food option right after
Or
practice
some
or a
good
workout.
calf food.
Yeah, some good calf food, right? Yeah, go there, load up on some stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you mentioned watching film and comparing yourself to people that weigh probably at a higher level. I think that's very important also. I actually heard like a couple weeks ago something that you're not how the closest people to you are. You're how the people you compare yourself to are.
Yeah.
So that's the level that you get to. So comparing yourself to higher people and maybe seeing not in a way of, oh, they're above me, but in a way of how can I get there? I think it's also very important, right?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there, right? Like I knew that, I was a junior in college, right? And like I was playing well, but I knew that there were always somebody that is better than me, right? And being able to look at them and say like, what are they doing that I'm not? What are they doing that I'm not? Right? And being able to try and break that down as finely as I could, so that I could try and translate that to my own game.
Perfect. So you would look at like their strengths and kind of like the techniques they had, the different type of movements they had, the drills they were doing, kind of trying to replicate that.
Yeah, 100%. Trying to replicate that and being like, well, maybe my play style, right, is not exactly like theirs, but they have elements of their game. They have elements of their game that I could try and adopt, right, or vice versa. Like maybe I'm not as fast as this guy, but like his footwork is really good, right, and I can work on that, right, that sort of thing. Building speed and stuff like that like doesn't happen overnight, right, but the technique, right, really can go fast, right? You can really work on that sort of stuff very quickly if you break it down and are able to just work on it at a rapid pace.
So it's kind of like extracting from different places and adjusting it to your playing style.
Yeah, 100%. Right. You're not going to be able to change your own like habits, right, and like your kind of play style without seeing something else, right? You have to be able to see yourself, see these other people, and be able to take what you can to merge the two.
Yeah. Okay. It's really good to be aware that even though you can be a better player than someone else, but there's still like some specific skills he's doing better than you, and then you can copy them.
No doubt. Yeah.
And that's a good thing about joining a competitive program, like in Gen Tech, for example, in Lacrosse.
Yeah. Yeah, no
that's
doubt.
Perfect. It's like me, for example, looking at a soccer player. I don't know. I'm gonna say Messi, and probably I'm not as fast as him. I don't have a lower center of gravity as him. But then I like to take I take the free kicks, So I might look at the way that he takes the free kicks and trying to replicate that technique. Not every aspect of it, but then those things that I can really execute on.
Yeah, no doubt. Whatever you feel in your power, right, that you can replicate in any way, you have to work towards that. You know, you can't be somebody else that you're not, right? I'm not 6'4", right? I'm not the tallest dude.
Yeah.
I'm not the heaviest guy, right? But I can do the little things right so that it translates correctly.
Perfect, man. So I mean,
Yeah.
all those things, being very consistent with the film, also not necessarily being to the detail with nutrition, but being very aware of what you were eating and how you were feeling, and then putting in the work. Would you say that those were kind of like some of the key aspects that then lead you to a good level in college?
100%. And I
Of
would
course,
say,
I just gave like a broad overview, but I'm
yeah.
sure there was a lot more detail into it.
Yeah, I think overall, like that's exactly it, right? And then I would say kind of the last piece that maybe you have less control over, but is also your teammates, right? And like
Okay.
how you're able to make that like iron sharpens iron mentality, right? If you're a really good player and you're playing against like not so good people, right? You're not going to get any better, right? You're not going to become where you want to be. But if you're not so good, right? If you're like okay and you're playing against really good people, you will start to build to that next level. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I think you have to have teammates that are wanting to work as hard as you are, right? And if they're not,
Okay.
then it really starts to become you're fighting yourself, right? You're just having to work on it by yourself all the time.
Yeah.
So you got to have that iron sharpens iron.
I think it's also really
And
about
then-
wanting, because it's also a mindset thing. Maybe there are some players that get discouraged. What's the difference of discouraged? And say like, oh, I don't get that level, but then being competitive and seeing it as a challenge to get to the level of the other guys.
Yeah, I would say 100%. You know, we showed up to practice and we would literally sometimes like get close to fighting each other. You know, it was so competitive on the practice field, you know, and then as soon as you step off the field, you're like, hey, I didn't mean it. You know, we're working hard, you know.
Those
Like,
are the
that's
best practices.
those are the best practices, no doubt. Yeah.
I can really imagine the lacrosse players being like that.
Yeah. You know, you get one whack to the arm pretty good, or
Yeah.
you get, you know, hit in the head or whatever, you get crushed and you get pretty upset. But at the same time, you're like, hey, I'm just trying to make you better. You know, I'm preparing you for that warlike mentality.
That's very key, man, that you guys like have those aspects in the practice. I have to say, first time for me seeing lacrosse in my life in Colombia, that's nothing. Like it doesn't exist. I started seeing people hitting each other with the stick. I'm like, what are they doing?
Yeah, it doesn't look right. It looks like legal abuse is what it looks like. You know, so yeah, it's good.
No, but yeah, what you mentioned is very, very important, man. But for example, I know there might be some guys that are probably the best in the team. I don't know. They don't really feel the team is giving so much energy. I know you were a captain. You're a captain now also because you've been coaching. Do you think that that person has some type of responsibility to bring the energy up, to bring in the other people, although they cannot necessarily control completely, but then they can take some, like they can bring the energy up and kind of like inspire their other teammates?
I 100% think that's true. You know, being that flame, right, of like of energy, is infectious, and you have to be able to like tell people like, hey, like I'm bringing it. Like, why aren't you? Right. And if they give you a reason of like why aren't they bringing it, then you'd be like, okay, well, you can leave that here for now, right? We'll work on this, but right now I need you present, and I need you being able to like bring it right at 100%, and not have anything that you know that holds you back from bringing that energy. Like what is it? Did you have a bad day at school? Did you have something in your family go on, or did your car break down? Right? Is that why you're low energy right now, or is it just because you don't want to be here? Right? It's like it's kind of one or the other, right? It's either an external factor or it's an internal, like you're feeling that, right? And as a captain or as a leader, right, you have to be able to kind of tap into that with your teammates, right, and figure out why they're not bringing it, you know. And if it's just because they don't want to be there, well, then you got to tell them basically like, leave or find it, leave or find it in you to bring it. You know, I think that's really key when being a leader.
Yeah, at the end of the day, if you're in a competitive environment, if you really want to achieve something big, that has to be kind of the mentality, you know. At some point, the goal, as we mentioned before, the actions have to relate to the goal. And if your goal is to be a competitive team, a competitive player, well, if you're not putting in the work, then it's not really aligning that much, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I wasn't perfect by any means. There were some days at
Okay.
practice that, I showed up and it was tough to want to be there. I had other things. I had homework to do, or I had, like I said, like my car wasn't working right, or, I had problems with my other teammates or something, where I didn't want to bring it. But at the end of the day, I depended on my teammates to bring me up to that next level, right? And say like, hey, let's leave that alone for now. We got 2 hours to work, right? You can worry about it after that, and like, let's get to it.
And that communication is important, like not letting other people think that it's just simply because you don't care. It's just because as normal people, you might be having a bad day, but then acknowledging it in front of, like, tell your teammates, hey, I might not be having the best day today. I need you to give me a little bit of fire now. So like that communication in the team is really important. And I guess you probably encourage it and see it now that you're being a coach, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, being a coach, it's very easy to tell when someone's off, right? It's very easy when I'm not playing and I don't have my own emotions to deal with, that I'm able to kind of view every player one by one and say like, okay, is he doing okay? Is he doing okay? Like, he's usually doing this, right now. He's usually chatting with this person, and I can bring him aside and be like, hey, like, is everything all right? And, most of the time when I say like, hey, is everything all right? And I can tell that it's not, I get the answer of like, hey, like, no, like, I had someone pass away in my family, or I had, my dog is not doing well, or whatever it may be, right? They bring it out and I'm like, okay, well, I'm sorry to hear that, but right now we have to, we're working here, and you're able to kind of escape all of the outside factors, right? And take that escape as positive, and don't try and bring it here,
Okay.
Especially in a team sport, let's say you have 20 guys on the pitch and one guy is not putting in the energy. It's like 5% of the team.
Yeah.
Like, and especially can be affecting. And you don't want, so it's good, like, you telling the guys to point it out, like in a respectful way, talk about it. And most of the stuff can be solved, like on the pitch.
Yeah. Those harsh emotions that you could be feeling, at the beginning of practice can really start to dwindle as your teammates really bring you up, right? And you have to be able to lean on people, lean on your teammates when you need it,
And also what you mentioned before, like your team always had the energy, like the internet tech team we're talking about now. Like, that's why you have the standard that it comes every day. It's like you not have a practice every 2 weeks with a lot of energy. So you have it every day, and that's when it points out when something is not going right, you fix it.
Yeah, 100%. And even when we didn't have practice, and like I said, like when we would come to the soccer games or whatever, like we were just hyped to be there and hyped to be all together, so yeah.
That was also kind of like a bonding activity for you guys to like keep that relationship going in some way.
Always. Yeah, always was, and on Sundays, right? Sundays were our days off, where we kind of didn't see anybody. And it would be very evident on like a Monday or whatever next day that we had practice that we were missing that energy. Right?
Yeah,
and
missed each other.
Yeah, we missed each other. We would just we would explode. You know what I mean? Like it works out every time.
You also mentioned before that you guys like made a fool of yourself and you guys didn't care.
Yeah.
I think it shows that you guys don't care what is going on around, you just care what's happening in the team. And I think it's very important. So if you're also on the pitch and you fight for something, you don't care about the other team, you just care about your own team.
Yeah, we focus on that a lot, right? And it comes down to like controlling the controllables, right? And we talk a lot about culture on the team. Like we have culture tools, right? And one of them is E plus R equals O, which is an event plus response equals your outcome, right? And an event you can't control, right? Any sort of event, right? Ref makes a bad call, the fans, right, are saying bad words about you, or the other team is saying bad things about you, right? All of these things are events, right, that you cannot control. And then you have your response, right, of like how you respond or how the group responds to something, right? That's all controllable. So it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter if it's positive, if it's negative, right? It's going to affect the outcome, right? So if you have a negative response to that event, the outcome could be negative, right? But if you have a positive response to whatever's going on, most likely that outcome will become positive.
I don't like math, but I like that equation.
Yeah.
No, I think putting everything in either an equation or a framework is just makes it easier or simpler to understand, because you can see the event as a constant. Like, let's say it's the same event. I don't know, the ref is making a bad call.
Hmm.
It's gonna be the same event, but then what's really gonna determine the outcome is gonna be the R part, that response part.
Yeah.
Now, I had never thought about it that way. I mean, in terms of that, E plus R equals O, but I think
Yeah.
that's very interesting, very key, man.
Yeah. Thanks. I mean, I didn't make it up. I wish I could take credit for it, but my coach kind of brings all that stuff to the table. And yeah, we work heavily on like not letting that outside stuff really affect us, and
Okay.
like you said, when that ref makes a bad call, do you go and throw your gloves and you pout about it, or do you just go make the next play, right? And work
Okay.
harder at it. You can't let those emotions take over. You have to be able to really control them.
And I think it's important for the coach to set all those prompts, all those equations, all those frameworks in every time they talk to you, because they're present all the time. So that's what kind of sets the culture. You
Hmm.
guys have it present on your minds all the time. So that's like the way you behave is completely related to that type of thing, to the thing that you want to accomplish.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. And like I said, nobody's perfect, right? My coach wasn't a
Hmm.
saint, but he knew that he knew what it took for us to be successful in a lot of ways, and
Okay.
whether he showed it all the time or not, we were successful. So that's all I can really say.
Perfect, man. So, kind of to end up in that captain topic, how to be a captain. What would you say are like three key traits that a captain needs to have?
Three key traits. I think number one, you have to lead by example, right? You can't be talking the talk and not walking the walk. Um, you have to be able to really just like show guys like why you're in it to win it, right? And that is infectious to them. I think maybe number two is you also have to be able to empathize, right? And be able to realize like maybe what's a little deeper, right? And like why someone might be feeling some way, or
Go
man,
deeper than surface level.
yeah, go deeper than surface
Okay.
level of like, why is this person feeling this way against somebody else, or like kind of managing those relationships on the team, right? And you have to kind of keep in mind that you're all working towards the same goal, right? It's like
Hmm.
this guy isn't being mean to you or hard on you because he doesn't like you. He's being hard on you because we want to win, right? I think that has to be something that the leader manages, right? Um, and then I think, kind of like I've been saying, keeping the main thing, right? Like if our main thing is playing a game this week, right? If we have one game this week, it has to be all focuses on that one game, right? We can't show up to practice and
Okay.
be talking about like, hey, like the Super Bowl's this weekend, or I got this big this big TV show's coming out, right? You have to be able to like get to practice and cut out all those other things, right? And be able to just focus on the task at hand. I think those are the three main things.
Oh, that's perfect, man. I mean, that last point is you just come back to making your actions align with your goal and having that goal in mind all the time.
Yep, exactly, 100%.
Perfect. Perfect. And brother, how, like, now that you mentioned that you were a captain of a pretty energetic team,
Yeah.
how has those skills, all that experience has transitioned to you now that you're starting to coach? How's that journey going?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty new coach, so I'm still adjusting, to be honest with you. It kind of
Okay.
when when I see my team play and when I see the kids that I coach perform, it makes me just like want to throw my gear back on and like show them how it's done. Like I have to be able to like use my words more effectively, and
Okay.
have better motivation rather than just like showing them how it should look. Right? Can't do that all the time. So I think me translating my play to coaching is it really just comes back to those three things that I said, right? Of like keeping the main thing, being able to manage people's emotions, right? And then just having that response correctly at all times,
Which age group
Um,
are you coaching right now? Like how old are
what
they?
high school?
No, which age group?
Oh, freshman through senior. So I'm coaching the varsity team.
Okay.
So they're 14 to 18 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are kind of like the main I wouldn't say problems, but things you have to work on in that age group?
You know, the culture of lacrosse has kind of shifted since I've played. To be honest with you, like a lot of kids on my high school team, like we all kind of wanted to play in college at some level, right? And now at this where I'm coaching now, I would say there's, you know, a handful or two, maybe two handfuls of kids that like maybe want to play at the next level. The rest of them just kind of play it for fun, you know.
Okay.
And I think with that, right, it's really easy to lose the detail oriented things of like having a proper warm up, right? Aligning your bag straight to make sure everything looks correctly, right? Making sure that you're trying very hard in every single drill, whether it's just a lame like skill stick drill or whether it's just like it's just sprinting, right? You have to be able to like be very detail oriented and know that those little things stack, right? Always. And I think a lot of the kids at the high school age really don't realize that it's the little things that make up the big picture. So I think that's a struggle that maybe I'm dealing with right now.
That's probably, I can imagine it's really hard for you, like you being very competitive and the kids are playing it just for fun. Because I also used to coach as a summer. I used to play hockey before, so I coached like the guys were like 12 years old, and it was always like also was really hard to like realize they're not at the same level as you are.
Yeah.
So like you see someone doing something like this, and then like, oh, why you don't try this one? And but they're not even at the moment they're not capable of it, and they have to.
Yeah, you're right. And it is tough to kind of internalize that and be like, okay, they're working on their skills and they're just not as good yet, right? But you kind of have to continue to push them to be their best, you know.
Yeah, and I think that last part is more like a technicality part, which will come a lot with the progress. But then what you mentioned at the beginning of the culture of the guys that they don't really see it as something as serious as you used to. I can really see it representing a problem, like because you probably want to put some level of intensity or detail-oriented culture, but you don't really see it, like they don't have it as important in their minds, right?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there, right? Like I think like, you know, even though it's just high school lacrosse, right? It's just a high school, it doesn't really matter, right? I take it super seriously. And when players show up and they don't take it as seriously, you know, it's frustrating to me.
And so I wouldn't say maybe kind of disrespect of your time because you're showing up, you're putting in the work, and the guys just make it for fun. I think it's really good to like get like a clearance of intention of everyone, because then it's like, because like you said, like there are 3 guys to take it serious, and it's just wasting their time, so they could, I don't know, go somewhere else or like just not putting the hard work in, and the other guys are just doing it for fun.
Yeah, 100%. And I think
easy.
You know, for the most part, I think everyone, that's the thing is, right? Everyone likes to be there, right? No one's like there and just like, oh, this is such a drag, right? I hate being here. But it's the little things, right? It's like, you can't just show up and be happy to be there, right? You have to show it. You have to be working hard, right? And even when it's toughest to do so, right? It doesn't matter, right? You have to be able to have that level of intensity that you bring to a game.
Do you see sometimes some change in action when you like try to motivate them and stuff like this? Because out of my own experience, you know, like sometimes you see people like they play for fun, but you can sense like they're very competitive. So give them like a little push, and then you can see them increasing in the energy and the training and stuff like this.
I would say 100%. You know, when I'm able to have that kind of one-on-one time with them and be able to kind of pull them aside and show them like what their potential is, right? I think that they really start to go on fire, right? And like start to work a little harder.
Yeah, I think that all comes a lot with communication and being able to communicate what the goals of the team are, but then also what being able to have those one-on-ones that you're doing is very key too, because it allows you to go beyond that surface level that you mentioned before and actually see why that person is not really, let's say, taking it so seriously or not going that extra mile. Because then probably if your goals don't really align with the goals that they have or the things that they have in mind, then that might be a problem. So having that communication, I suppose, is going to be very important, no?
Yeah, I would say 100%. You know, and you have to have their intentions, right? Like what is your intention on being on the team, right? Is is it just to score goals and have fun, or are you in it for the fame? Are you in it to go play in college, right? Having their intention in your mind enables you to connect a little better with them, right?
Perfect.
And being able to really touch that heartstring a little bit.
No, definitely. It was like an interesting problem, and I mean, I suppose you've been like working on it, and that's probably your main focus right now. No.
Yeah, I would say so, right? Like, especially in the high school season, it's very quick, you know, like the season's only
It's
like
the
2 or
spring,
3
right?
months long.
It's the spring.
Yeah, it's the spring, right? So like we had basically all of March. So yeah, it's March 30th, right? We had all of March to kind of prepare like practices, right? We only had one game in all of March, but then April hits and we've got 2 or 3 games a week, you know? So like it's gonna be intense, and we have to be able to kind of work through those things, you know, little by little. So
Okay. And do you guys play like at the regional level? How does it work?
yeah, so like you kind of start in your conference, right? Just like, you know, the WAC conference. You start with kind of your local teams, and then it goes sectional, and then super sectional, and then state.
Okay.
Yep.
What would you say are gonna be the goals for this season?
You know, realistically, I'm hoping to get to sectionals, right? And beat everyone in the conference is my number one goal. I think that's super possible, right? And we should.
Yeah.
And then go as far as we can in the sectional, right? See how many teams outside of our little bubble can we beat. You know, there's some really good teams around here, but at the same time, I know the kind of weapons and the kind of players that we have, and I fully believe that we can keep going. You know.
No, man, I wish you a lot of luck with that one, man.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. It should be good.
Yeah, of course, brother. I think what you mentioned and what we've talked about in this podcast have been very important. Also because of your experience as not only a high level player. For people that don't know, you have more than 300 points here in Indiana Tech, which, I mean, I'm a soccer player, but I know that's a lot.
Yeah.
And you've accomplished a lot of things. That you've been an All-American here, but it's more also the things that not only what you did, but the things that you mentioned that just show us your mindset and what really helped you accomplish that, and what is helping you now in this journey of a coach, which I believe is really valuable for the call. So I really appreciate you for that, man.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on, and I appreciate what you're doing, and know if there's anything else I can do to help and, you know, kind of build your guys' brand, let me know. You know, it feels good to, you know, be a part of this. So thank you.
Yeah, bro. There's one more thing we would like you to do is just answer some rapid fire questions. If you're okay with that, bro.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem, man. Now to start off a little bit with the school, who was your favorite professor at school and why?
Favorite professor, Professor Allwine. He was my Professor Allwine. He was my final business teacher, and he just made things really simple. And I just love the way he taught the class.
I haven't read now. He's a very nice guy.
Very nice guy. Yeah.
Okay. The next question, to give some insight on lacrosse, what would you say is the toughest position?
Toughest position, probably goalie. Yeah, I think
they don't even have armor. Like, doesn't it?
No.
Crazy,
yeah, they wear a chest pad and a stick and a helmet. That's about it, and gloves.
And I have to say, the first time.
Psychos.
What'd you say?
Yeah.
The goalkeepers are always psychos.
Always, and I'll tell that to the goalkeeper right now, Kyle Tubal. You're psycho.
Shout out.
Yeah,
because the first time I heard about lacrosse was I was in I don't know if you know IMG camp back down in Florida. I was there playing soccer, and there was like people were going crazy because there was this guy. How was his name? It's Paul Rabel.
Paul Rabel. Yeah.
Yeah, he was down there, and people like were going crazy. So I went to see him, and he was shooting. They were saying he was shooting at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, at least.
Like how is a goalkeeper, and also the ball is like this, and it's hard, you know, like how is a goalkeeper handling that? But
I don't know, man. And you know, just the mental of like getting scored on, right? Of like You have to kind of deal with that all the time. And, you know, being hit in the leg with a 100-mile-an-hour shot and just having to eat it, right? Having to soak it and keep playing. It's a tough position.
Yeah,
Especially normally
brother.
for goalkeeper, like you have to be focused all the time. And with lacrosse, I imagine it's like very nerve-wracking because you don't see the ball the whole time.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no doubt. So
yeah, and the ball is white. Like you don't see it that much.
yeah, exactly. You know, it's a 6x6 goal, you know, and the guys are shooting at 100 miles an hour, and, you know, you're only about 6 feet tall and you're, you know, not that wide. So you don't cover much of it, you know, so it's tough to say.
Yeah. Crazy, man. Then what's your favorite lacrosse move?
Favorite lacrosse move? Toe drag. Toe drag. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you want to look that up you look that up. It's like a hockey toe drag, but yeah.
Okay. I'm going to look it up.
Okay.
What's the biggest difference between high school and college lacrosse?
Easy. I mean, the pace of play, right? Of like how fast the ball moves in the air, how fast the players are, how physically, you know, strong and everybody is. That's really all the differences. It's the IQ of it, right? It's also different, but at the high school level, your IQ can be very good still, right? But as soon as you reach that college level, your IQ and your physicality and the pace of play all just like 10x, right? It just amplifies by a lot.
Okay.
So for all the high school kids out there, get prepared.
Yep, get prepared for going fast all the time. Yep.
What's the best lacrosse moment of your career, man?
Favorite lacrosse moment? When we went down to Reinhardt University in Georgia, and we beat them on their home turf after losing to them 2 years in a row in the national championship game. Felt pretty good. Yeah, tough, but you know that's my Super Bowl.
Revenge.
Yeah, revenge, exactly.
Camilo and me, we looked at some rules in lacrosse, and what do you think would be one lacrosse rule? Like, if there would be one you can change, which one would it be?
One lacrosse rule. I think me being an offender, you know, I would set a lot of picks, right? Like if you ever watch like basketball, you set a pick on somebody.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? And basically, when you're an offender, you're setting a pick. You can't move, right?
You do a screen.
Yeah, like a screen. Exactly. Okay. And you know, the defenders are basically able to just like run you over, right? They're able to just like blow you up. And if it were up to me, I would change that rule where the defender can't just run you over and blow you up. You know, it's got to be it's almost, I don't know how to explain it, but basically, I hate getting just trucked for no reason. So I would change that rule.
So make it a foul.
Yeah, make it a foul. Exactly.
Okay. Man, and how did you used to mentally prepare for tough games?
Man, I would try and calm my mind, right? That was my biggest tool of like, you can't let the moment be too big, right? Of like, even before you even start playing, you can't be so jacked up that you start sweating and like, you know, your heart starts racing on the bus. You know what I mean? You kind of have to be cool. And that's when you start to perform your best, right? Not when you're super hyped up or your emotions are high. It's when you're the most comfortable, right? So getting the most comfortable in your brain makes me get ready.
That's great, man. We actually had the chance to speak with a golf player. I think like golf is very mental, and he will look at it from a scale of 1 to 10. So not trying to be up to a 9 or 10 where he's so jacked up, but not trying to be at a 2 or a 3 where he's demotivated or unmotivated, however you call it.
Yeah.
But more like a 6, you know, where you kind of you're excited, but then you're still in that state of mind that you're able to process things in the right way.
I think that's 100% right. Sorry, go ahead.
What you also mentioned before when we talked about the recruiting process, like, of course you can celebrate a goal, but like don't get too hyped up because you just got one goal now. Like you have to keep doing like the practice and show up.
Yeah, like 100%. And kind of the chirp or like the kind of diss at somebody when they're getting too hyped up about a goal is like, hey, like act like you've been there. Act like you've been there before. You don't have to. This is your first goal ever. Like, congratulations. So act like you've been there.
We had the same situation yesterday. I played the game yesterday, so we were leading 2-0, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, let's go, let's go, let's go!" It's like, guys, it's the first. Like, we haven't. Right now, we won 0 points.
Exactly.
And, like, we keep the same level of focus all the time.
Something we used to say back when I was playing in Colombia is like 0-0. The game's still 0-0. Anytime
always.
There was a goal for us or for them, the game's still 0-0.
Yeah, always, right? You have to have that mentality so you continue to push yourself, right? And you can't. There's nothing's ever safe, right? No lead is ever safe enough until the clock strikes 0. So
True.
What's one of the unexpected challenges for you as a coach?
Unexpected challenges. I would say maybe just getting the players to understand kind of the IQ of the game, right? Of like, I have a lot in my brain, right, that like works because I've been doing it for so long. But being able to teach that, I think really has been difficult for me, right? Of like, you can't just stand still on the field, right? You have to be moving your feet. You have to be willing to, go through, like, even when you're tired, right? And like do the little things right. And it's hard for me to translate that and get the kids to really understand that.
Okay.
It's also the same for me. Like, when I taught like the kids or like coach the kids, like with everything else, it comes with the time. But I think with a technical drill, you see improvement way faster than with IQ play. Like, they have to have the sense for the open space and stuff like this.
Yeah.
But also, like, I think a good tip is to let them watch like some film or like do recordings and let them like how you do it, like watch your own games and see where you are on the pitch.
Yeah, 100%. And we've only played one game, but I'm looking forward to kind of breaking down that film with them and being able to show them like, yo, like, you're doing this when you should be doing this. And like, here's why. Right.
Okay. I think like you coming from a place of experience are more willing to have an impact on them because that's something that you tried and that that has worked for you.
Yeah, and they definitely respect me as a coach that way. They know that I have that level of experience and that IQ, and they really never are like, coach, like, why are you saying that? Or like, they never talk back. It's respectful, and they do respect me.
Your highlight video.
Yeah, I'm sure some of them have found it before, but I don't need to show them, what it really looks like.
I took a look at it, bro. It looks crazy, to be honest.
Well, it was back in the day, I guess. Feels like forever ago already. Sometimes I don't know if I still got it.
Yeah, I don't think it goes away that fast, bro.
I don't know. Maybe.
Brother, what's the funniest excuse a player has come up with?
Funniest excuse? Oh man, I don't know. There's a lot of like fake injury stuff. Just a lot of like, oh, coach, my knee's hurting. Or like, oh, my quad. It's like, well, what happened? He's like, got hit with a ball. It's like, well, it's a physical sport, so like, suck it up, man.
Or the typical one where you do like a bad pass or something, and you start like touching your elbow.
Yeah. Actually, that like. Because you have your stick, right? And like some people like look at their stick, like, oh, what's wrong with this thing? Like, no, it's not the stick, dude. All right, it's not the stick. 100%.
The next question you can get personal. Which one of your teammates attack you would hate to coach and why?
Repeat that one more time. I'm sorry.
No, which one of your old teammates attack would you hate to coach?
Oh, hate to coach. I don't know. Maybe Jonah Jarmus. He was a bit of a hothead, but he was a good guy. I love that guy though.
Nothing personal.
Nothing personal, Jonah. No.
Perfect. Man, what drill do you make the players do that you used to hate?
Six line passing. It's basically this full field passing drill. It's frustrating at times because it's difficult, but at the same time you have to be able to do it at a high level, or else you're not going to be able to clear the ball, meaning like you're not going to be able to get the ball to your side of the field. So
it's like one steps, one is in one goal and the other one is in the other goal, and you have to pass it to the other person.
So like imagine you guys kind of know the field, right? So you got your two nets on one side or the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have lines on either side of the net, and then you have lines that are up on midline, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then basically the corner line passes to this line like passes over to here, and then it's a continuous kind of like zigzag pattern with the ball, and it's difficult, right? And like a lot of passes get dropped because they're long passes, right? You're on the move,
you're constantly moving forward, right?
Yeah, you're running towards passes.
Okay. It's like we have a drill like that in football, I'd say. Yeah. Now I can imagine it.
Yeah. So it's difficult, and you get frustrated because people are dropping passes, you're throwing bad passes, you're running hard, but you got to be able to kind of focus in and dial it in. So.
Okay.
And to finish off, what's a piece of advice you would give to younger athletes?
Piece of advice: put work in on your own time. If you really love the sport, you can't just show up to practice and think that you're going to be really good. You have to be able to put work in on your own. And if you don't know what to do, right, there are plenty of resources, right? Go on YouTube, look up on Instagram, ask somebody, right? Ask your coach, ask your other teammates what they do on their own time. You have to be able to find stuff that you can do better on your own to get better.
Definitely, bro. I think that's key, man. And I really appreciate you for all the value that you've provided to us in this call, and also for being eager to speak with us and to talk to us, bro. So for that, I really appreciate you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.